An example I'd use is Yuval Harari, the author of *Sapiens*. He speaks probably with the thickest Israeli accent, and but his storytelling, his communication style just draws me in, and I can listen to that man speak all day, every day, because what he has to say. Yes, I understand people's obsession with accents because it's a way for you, it's a quick win for you to appear a certain way, and that might work with people. For example, are more judging people by the cover
Yeah. Yeah.
as
Yeah.
opposed to the in-depth conversations. I think the bottom line for me to summarize this is not necessarily to forget accents altogether.
Yeah.
It's more about, look, there's a big picture. It's a recipe, and you've got different elements within that recipe that you should take care of. And when you hit a certain level, it's more of a diminishing return. Should you spend more time focusing on your accents, instead maybe learn to improve your collocation and expand range of conversations, or maybe you learn a different language.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's again a topic of priority. Like you focus the most effort into the most like margin generation items. If you talk about ROI or IR, all those kind of like financial terms. And on the other hand, I also felt the opposite side of the obsession of accent can also give you again, like it's a spectrum thing, but extreme obsession of that could contribute your fear of communication.
For sure, yeah.
What I observed is a lot of actually Chinese abroad, quite a lot, like when they first come abroad, go abroad, they actually speak quite good English.
Yeah.
Despite they were just started off and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I spoke poor English," which is not true at all. I think a lot of time is because they're conscious about their accent, the imperfection in their mind
Yeah.
of the accent. So they probably feel afraid of communicating.
Yeah, that's actually a general theme. Like when I browse Xiaohongshu, of course, with me focusing on English content, I get a lot of recommendations of people, talking about accents or English learning style. And one thing I've observed is people are so harsh. They're incredibly harsh and critical of other people's accents to the point where it sort of moves away from what the original content was intended for. So when you have an environment this critical, it is absolutely counterintuitive for anyone to speak English, and it's not a conducive environment or not healthy. It's quite a toxic environment if you aren't comfortable to even speak the language that you're learning, and that's that's a massive problem because this obsession, it's a tool at the end of the day. Accents is one of 10,000 different elements within that. Beyond that, you have your emotions behind the language, word stress, connected speech, how you speak fast or really, 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 really slow to exaggerate your points. It's a huge armory of different tools, different weapons that you can utilize to communicate to the other end of the table, the person that you're sitting next to. It's obsession where I find it very difficult to grasp.
I think I can also give a counter reason for why it's not as important to focus on accent in the first place. This is more of my own theory, so it's not scientifically based, but I'm just put it out there. What I observed is when people have actually good accent in different languages, they tend to have a musical ear. So in a sense that if how do you get a good accent? How do you get good pronunciation? You have to understand, first of all, distinguish the differences of different tone, of different intonations. A lot of times, why there are people who cannot sing very well. Yes, okay, first of all, lack of training could be, but second of all, could be like, okay, talking about my dad again, sorry, dad, but he cannot, he simply cannot sing on the tune at all. I was basically just call him tone deaf. And there are people like that, unfortunately. And people have different talents as well, right? So what I observed is people have musical ear, be able to distinguish the tiny differences
Like G, M, G
in
major,
in details.
C, yeah.
They will know, oh, actually how I spoke sounded slightly different. And that slight difference makes a big difference in terms of accent.
Yeah, and also I'd add another point on top of this is how you sound to yourself is so different to when you hear the recordings of how you sound. And I think
Yeah.
it must have been a quite interesting observation for you when we start editing these videos,
Yeah.
is to hear how yourself speak. And often when we publish our content over to the internet, and we see a lot of comments, for example, suggesting we take different approaches or make some changes to how we speak. And it's very, very interesting to actually look at that from that perspective. And I think if you want to improve your accents, not just accents, but overall English, this is probably one of the best ways to actually record your work and actually listen to your work.
Yeah, basic is a basic physics lesson, right? Because how you hear yourself is through the bone as well, bone and air. So that's why the vibration and sounds could be sounded differently. But when you hear back from recording, obviously the whole appliances recorded in different way. But when you hear from other people or from the recordings, mainly from the air, not from the bone itself, that's why it will sound differently.